Pine trees are found all over the world, so making cheap, realistic pine trees is something any modeler can try. These trees look fantastic and are very easy to make with cheap materials. Let's not waste any more time and get started making some great looking pine trees. The main structure of the pine tree is made using coconut fibre basket liner. It's similar to furnace filter material, which is also a great substitute material. Simply cut the basket liner into long strips, starting with a width of about 1.5 inches. And gradually cut smaller widths until you have about a 1/2 inch width as the smallest piece. Next, cut the strips into small squares. Then trim off the corners to create a more rounded shape. Each piece of basket liner can then be separated by peeling them apart into 2 pieces. And once split, I tease out the fibres to finish with a much less dense rounded shape, which is then set aside. Any odd pieces of bark or fibre can simply be removed, but don't worry too much because it will eventually be covered in foam. I do this for all the pieces and end up with a very large variety of sizes from large to very small. To support the branch structure, I'm using a large barbecue skewer. I first give them a spray with glue to help the coconut fibre branches stay in position once pushed onto the skewer. Each tree gets a coat of Rust-Oleum Satin Espresso, but any brown will do. Be sure to give it a nice thorough coat, ensuring the trunk gets some paint on it as well. Now is a good time to trim the odd strands of fibre once the paint has dried. Don't go overboard though, a little bit of roughness is good. Each tree now gets a thorough coat of spray adhesive and a good covering of Woodland Scenics coarse turf. I found conifer green gives a good initial colour. Basically sprinkle the turf over the entire tree and shake away the excess. Again, we give the tree a thorough spray with the adhesive, and this time we'll come back and give the tree a coating of Woodland Scenics fine turf. The chosen colour is Weeds. I apply it to the tops and sides only, trying to avoid applying it directly to the underside of the tree. That way the darker conifer green subtly shows through as a dark shadow from underneath. Now for the trunk. This is a piece of balsa wood dowel. To help it look more realistic, I shave it down and give it a more tapered shape. I'm not worried about it being perfectly round. And to remove the obvious sharp edges, I lightly sand it down. To bring out the bark texture on the balsa, I firmly drag a wire brush across it. Depending on the age of the tree, you can create an extremely rough bark texture or go relatively light. I tend to like the look of the rough bark, so I'm quite vigorous with the wire brush. To remove the fuzz left behind from the wire brush, I lightly drag my finger across the dowel. You could also use sandpaper if you're worried about getting splinters, but just go very lightly because you don't want to lose the bark texture. In the top of the trunk, bore a hole large enough to fit the barbecue skewer. This is where the top of the tree will connect to the trunk. A small square file does the trick for me. Now is also a good time to press a piece of wire into the base of the trunk to make it easier to install on the layout. I also found a pin worked quite well. I fixed it in place with some super glue. The trunk gets the same coat of paint as the branches, Satin Espresso. Ensure it gets a complete coat and fills in the grooves created with the wire brush. To bring out the trunk detail, I give the entire trunk a dry brushing of Vallejo Israeli Sand Grey. To remove the excess skewer, I have these special pliers that help me get up under the foliage, but normal pliers will work just fine as well. I use the side cutters to remove the skewer, leaving just enough to press the top of the tree into the trunk we just painted. Once you've got the tree together, carefully move it until you're happy that it's straight, and then fix it in position with some super glue. To bring the trunk to the next level and really turn it into a foreground tree, I use some fine twigs. From small bushes and plants just outside, I then break off some different sizes from large to small. Using a pin, create a small hole in the trunk and press the small pieces of twig into position. I find about 10 pieces does a good job. And there you have it, your one tree on your way to making a forest. These trees look fantastic as part of a large forest, and making large batches at a time really goes very quickly. Don't forget to check out bouldercreekrailroad.com for more information and tutorials. And if you spotted the dog 4 times in this video, be sure to let me know on my website by filling out the form, and you'll go on to the Hall of Fame page. Cheers and thanks for watching.